How's everyone doing today? It's gorgeous out. Data. First question for everyone. Data. Okay. Just want to get out of the way. What's that?
100% data.
Yeah. Data, tomato. It's called the whole thing.
Is it privacy or privacy?
Good question. This is the whole panel, folks.
We can go on.
Our enunciation of various terms in our industry. Let's dive in. So, announce all the panelists. Tony Katsur, IB Tech Lab. Thank you, Deep Intent, for allowing me to moderate this with my esteemed panelists. So let's start off with a clean room. Who here knows what a clean room is? Show of hands. 60%. Okay, great. What is a clean room? I think if we went around the audience and asked how you would define a clean room, we'd get myriad answers. Dave, let's start with you.
It's a good question.
How would you define a clean room?
It's a good question.
Particularly with what Snowflake's been up to
Absolutely.
for the past year and longer.
Absolutely.
How would you define a data clean room?
I think at a high level, a clean room is a privacy-compliant technology that allows collaboration of two or more parties. So in Snowflake terminology, what that means is we have a framework that allows data sharing where two or more parties are able to match and query data sets without exposure of granular level information that protects the privacy of the data of those two organizations. And it supports applications like planning, activation, and measurement in our specific industry.
Yeah. We'll talk use cases in a few moments. Dave, going to you. How would you define a data clean room?
Yeah.
What are your expectations of it?
Expectations, I think it's pretty common. One, yes, you're bringing different data sets. We're talking about convergence TV, so we're trying to break down the walled gardens and allow as much of the data in so we can get a complete picture, no matter how we have to end up stitching it together. I think the clean room has two aspects. I think it's the safety of the data coming in and really the merits of what a clean room is, where there's it's isolated data coming in. It's not contaminated, so you can see it in its truest state, so you can then bring it together. But I think the other aspect is making sure that in a clean room, nothing gets out that's not supposed to. So again, it's all related to data privacy, but there's how it comes in and how it's managed in, and then how it stays in at the same time.
Oleg.
I think it's the most recent definition of data management platform. We had DMPs, CDPs, now I feel like that's the next stage of that kind of never-ending journey of data management. Clean room specifically feels to me like a very kind of narrow playground where if you have certain types of data, you can come in and use it, and if you don't, there's, so far at least, not too many use cases for it.
We're going to talk about that. That's our next question, with problems it solves for today and tomorrow. Serge, how would you,
honestly,
particularly with your work at LG, immersed in CTV, how would you define it?
I think it's kind of the same thing, but I think for us, what helps is we are able to share our data. We don't want to be called a walled garden at all. We are able to share our data, but we are able to control its uses, the use case associated with the data. So, there are people that struggle with, is it used for measurement only? Is it used for analytics? Is it used for planning? Is it used for activation? It allows us to decide what we want to do with the data in a safe environment. And the other advantage also, by the way, at least from our client's perspective, is it allows multiple OEMs. Everybody wants to see the complete picture of a CTV campaign, for example. It allows multiple OEMs to share their data, and then they can then decide in a, again, in a safe environment.
Yeah, at the Tech Lab, we published technical standards on data clean rooms in February of this year. We also published a protocol standard for interoperability between disparate clean rooms. There are, I think at our last tally, I think there are 37 different data clean room solutions across the globe. We think of it as a means of, it's a data syncing platform that puts consumer privacy by design or consumer privacy first. And the fact that not only does it encrypt and tokenize user information, but it also has data destruction built into it. So it's almost impossible. Never say never. With enough entropy, you can fingerprint pretty much anything. That's not a advertising issue. That is a data science and machine learning thesis. But we think data destruction is also a key part of this. Like, it can never be traced back to its original source record. But I encourage you folks to check out the standards we published in February. They're on the Ivy Tech Lab site. Serge, let's stick with you. Particularly again in CTV, the cookies never existed. So that's never, it's been email logins, device IDs, IP address. Like, there's various other forms of components that you can sync off of. What are some of the use cases? What do you see data clean rooms solving for today in the CTV world? And perhaps what are some future use cases?
I think that one of the things that I'm sure we're gonna talk about is the difference between clean room and a DMP. Is it one of the same thing, right? I have to tell you, in a lot of our cases, use cases, we kind of think of them as similar. But what are we doing? What are we providing? So we're providing for example, our universe file. What does that universe file mean? It's our IP addresses coupled with our impression logs, coupled with our CTV unique ID. Okay, great. You can tie it down to a TV. Now, we're not giving anything down to like a PII level, but we can tie it down to a TV and a specific household. We then send it to a snowflake. We send it to an Axiom, an Epsilon, all sorts of different players, right? We can send it to those guys. Now, what do they do with it? They then match it with other partners. So, for example, Samsung goes and sends it. Roku sends it, sends their data. Whoever wants to play in this game, right? Whoever wants it now. Ultimately, the agencies and the clients decide. If you play in this game, they spend more. It's clear as day, right? So for us, it's important that we want to share this data. They then go ahead and match it. They match all the different the data sets. And then what ends up happening is they then tell us, here are the unduplicated or here are the unique devices, right? And then we still go do the activation. The activation is still happening on our platform, either programmatically on a managed services basis. But then what's the advantage for all of our clients is they come back and saying, this is an unduplicated reach and frequency, and also how much incremental reach from linear. So those are the two big use cases, but you have to go through this process of each one of us providing the data, and it's like a workflow. This workflow is not automated. It's very manual today. We need to all automate it together, but everybody has to play in this game, or else it becomes like only one or two partners playing, and then that's the problem with this entire workflow.
So it sounds like the use case you're seeing it solve for today. Is it planning and investment? Is it execution?
It's mostly for now. It's mostly for measurement and analytics. We have not yet gone across the line in terms for activation. We're still doing the activation on our own, but for now, it's mostly measurement and analytics.
Okay, so attribution. Campaign analytics.
Oh, sure.
Oleg, from you have a very unique buy-side perspective on this. What are you? Are you using data clean rooms today? What are the use cases you see them addressing in the near term and future?
Sure. So we're not using any clean rooms today, and we've been trying to find a use case for the last year and a half. Again, this is a healthcare conversation here. In the end of the day, we are an agency representing healthcare marketers. Historically, they don't have a lot of first-party data to talk of. There's two types of consumers, right? There's doctors and there's patients. There is an identifier on the doctor side that everybody in the chain from the buy side to the sell side already matches to perfectly. There's no need for that kind of protection because it's one identifier that everybody just decided to work with, NPI ID.
Right, it's already falling under HIPAA compliance.
Everybody goes off of the same identifier. that whole kind of concept of security just does not exist there. On the consumer side, that's where I see potentially the future of opportunity is. Now, to solve for that one, we go back to the problem of where will the first-party data come from the buy side to bring into a clean room to try to find some matches to the sell side and come up with some insights and analytics that would be useful. So that's the struggle we're in right now.
Yeah. And from buy side, you're thinking from the pharma brands themselves, the agencies, who's bringing that data?
Well, in the end, a marketer needs to own their data set. We are there to facilitate, to help them build the data set if it's possible. Nobody goes to pharmaceutical websites. Nobody, considering compliance and everything else, not too many people submitting many emails here and there anyway. So building up that set of data that can be used will need to be probabilistic.
Yep.
So now, is that enough? Can we build enough of these kind of conditions, healthcare conditions on probabilistic level data, bring those into the environment? Potentially, yes. So as long as out of the gate we know that this probabilistic data, to us, it's good enough. It's just good enough. That we can bring into a potential environment where a publisher who historically wouldn't have matched that because of like legacy DMP environments for the all the privacy and reasons, here potentially may feel more comfortable matching that. That is an opportunity still to be determined. The question for us will be how many clean rooms do we need to work with?
Right.
What is that tech stack?
Right.
And is the operational and overhead of technology costs and people and experiences that are not necessary to build this thing in, is it worth it?
Yep.
Will it move the needle? Again, we're a media agency. What's our job? Invest our clients' media dollars as effectively, as efficiently as possible. Every input cost needs to be justifiable. These are new input costs. We need to calculate that value.
Well said. It's an ROI conversation.
Yep.
If I'm going to invest in these clean room technologies, what's the return on that? What's the return on that investment? David, how about yourself? What use cases are you actively leveraging clean room technology, and if not, why not yet? And do you see a future in the near term and long term for use cases it can solve for?
Yeah, I think similar to Oleg, we're in the same kind of space right now. Lots of conversations, and there's limited to no traction either to the costs, lack of data. Great conversations, wonderful questions, just no answers. So right now we have more hope than reality on this. I think there is a lot of vision, but some of those barriers are like on the list of 6 priorities, they're number 8.
Right.
So we're working our way down the list as quickly as we can, but we're dealing with other things.
I think there needs to be the right vertical.
Yeah.
Where the scale on both ends, on the supply and demand side, the scale is big enough where 2 parties can come together and come up with some kind of an overlap analysis that is worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think there's application, and I'm going to say even outside of the agency, in the industry, as we talk about the legacy TV measurement providers, there's something like a clean room where those folks are coming into the space because they know it's in their own best interest for everybody to at least build that part of the world, and then see how agencies and clients can bring that pooled, remove the walls, and let us see how these impressions and everything come together to manage reach, frequency, and these dollars. If you don't do that, even for some of the bigger brands, I go back to the Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark when they find the medallion, they're digging, but he's going off of a map where it was singed into his hand, only to realize there's drawings on the other side. So they're basically digging in the wrong place. They're close. That's how I kind of feel where we're at right now. We're close, but we're still kind of digging in the wrong place.
I'm going to use that analogy, by the way.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm definitely going to use that.
Love that movie.
Can't wait for the last one. David, Snowflake, you sit, I think, a very unique position given Snowflake's core product.
Sure.
The fact that you're this kind of connective tissue between major cloud providers, even other clean room partners as well. Sure. You may have very pharma or CTV specific use cases. What are you seeing? What use cases are being addressed today in data clean rooms, and where do you see the potential over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And I'm not sure, in terms of the audience, what their level of familiarity is with Snowflake. However, we are a technology that sits across the 3 public clouds. And we actually have a framework that supports data clean rooms where, as I said, you can securely join 2 or more data sets for various applications. I think what Serge said is accurate. A lot of the initial applications of clean rooms were for things around like analytics and measurement, whether it was a large TV streamer that wanted to map impressions to third-party outcomes, or a third-party measurement provider like a VideoAmp, which is a strategic partner of ours, that validates like a marketer's investment actually in that streamer. I think we're seeing more and more activation. We have a pretty large swath of marketers who are moving their sort of marketing workloads to Snowflake, and they're parking their first-party marketing data actually in Snowflake. And so the ability to tap into some of these large TV streamers to plan and then activate using first-party data or modeling it out and use it with third-party data is pretty powerful, and that trajectory is growing. I do think that Oleg made a great point, and you made a great point, which is in order for them to succeed, we are going to need interoperability of different types of clean rooms, whether it's a Snowflake clean room or a clean room with another type of partner. And on the investment part, we don't really have a clean room product. We have a framework. Like the whole idea around, one of the major ideas around Snowflake is this idea of a shared data architecture and data sharing. So if I have data in a warehouse in Snowflake, I can share a view of that data with a partner or within my org without movement or copying of that data. The clean room is an advanced application where you're sharing a view of that data and joining it with another party's data actually within Snowflake without movement. So that's pretty powerful stuff. However, Snowflake needs to work with other players in the space. Our clean room is just one type of clean room. We also work with other partners that use our framework to surface clean rooms on technology. So if you've heard of Samuha or Habu, we're investors in both of those companies. And they're actually surfacing sort of native app clean rooms that are more out of the box that'll, support this privacy compliance.
Yeah, one thing that we've seen, which is really, it reinforces everything you just said, it's still early, way first quarter, or within 2 minutes of the beginning of the game here. I'm a football guy, dude. Yeah, you're right. There you go. But we're starting to see advertisers come to us and saying, we will spend more money with you guys on advertising if you provide your data. Some of it could be even as detailed as the ACR data, like actual viewing of impressions and content, to a Snowflake, to a LiveRamp Safe Haven, to whatever, to an InfoSum, it depends on who, and pull it all together. We will end up spending more with you if you do that. We have to get over the hump to saying, make sure that that's in our best advantage. If the data is all controlled in a safe, controlled environment, I actually don't really care. I really do, and I really don't. So I think that's a massive advantage that all of these guys have. We're still very, very early in that phase. Everyone seems to be asking us to do this, to match the data for measurement and attribution all day long. It's the activation piece where I think is going to go crazy.
That's interesting.
I want to go ahead. You're jumping to the bit because I want to comment.
No.
Serge made a really good point on something.
The age-old story on when a buyer goes to a big enough publisher who just refuses, before clean rooms, refuses to do any kind of data matching for the fear of leaking of the data, taking the insight and using that somewhere else with the competitor or somewhere else. If clean rooms are now, for whatever reason, doesn't matter what the reason is, make that publisher feel comfortable. That their data truly is protected for whatever they feel protection truly is, because it's different publisher to publisher, then again, that's an opportunity. Standing it up operationally and making it worthwhile, going I can go back and forth with this publisher, but how many people can actually find here? And is it worth all that effort versus going into open exchanges and buying cheap inventory and basically counting the waste as kind of cost of doing business?
Right. Well, you made both Serge and you made some good points I want to talk about. So it's not only the benefit, to summarize, there's not just consumer privacy and data security benefits. There's a media company, publisher data leakage solution here potentially, where you're more willing to share that data in a way that you can mitigate.
Honestly, that should be the pitch. That should be the pitch, that comfort level.
But you made a really good point earlier, and you mentioned the use of using probabilistic IDs. Clean rooms today are, who knows? Does the audience know the difference between a deterministic identifier and a probabilistic identifier? Show of hands. Okay, Moses. Okay. Deterministic identifier, to make it simple, email, home address, phone number, high fidelity, right? Probabilistic, context is a probabilistic identifier. IP address could be determined as a probabilistic identifier because they do change. You were actually just kind of hypothesizing to get to scale, because part of the challenge with clean rooms, right, is do I have enough data to, on a good day, a great match rate's 40%. Like you're whistling Dixie, right? On average, they're what, 10, 20% match rates typically? But if you start looking,
Right, well,
On consumer side, again,
Consumer
talking
side.
about
On the
physician
consumer.
side, it's
but what you're
better be
saying,
close to 100. right?
you were just hypothesizing using matching off of probabilistic data, which may not be as high fidelity as, Anthony and Ivy Tech Lab, but you could get greater scale, perhaps at lower fidelity, and then you could look at the
It's
performance.
that sliding scale of accuracy, wherever you feel, okay, this is good enough, and that is
Right.
scalable enough, and I feel I'm okay with whatever that spillover that I know that could be wasteful, but again, I'm okay with that waste.
Are you seeing that use case?
yes, and so there's a couple of things. Clean rooms also, the more advanced use cases incorporate third-party identity. So if you're a marketer and you have first-party data associated with your customers, you want to activate across a large streamer, maybe that match key is an email or a terrestrial address. That's great. However, there's nothing that says necessarily that your email associated with David Wells, the consumer, is the same as the streamer's email associated with David Wells, the viewer. So one component of our clean rooms is really this idea of a third-party identity provider that resolves identity on either side of the match and sort of it adds additional PII and performs that join to get more scalable matches. And that's where we get past, the 20, 30, 40% match rates. And ideally, what you're doing it is with not a single identity provider, but you do it with federated identity.
Well, this is where you get into interoperability, right? So,
Right.
so another use case is data enhancement,
Right.
which can improve match rates. So
100%.
if you want to take your core data set through a data clean room, whether Snowflake or others, and match that to the ramp, live ramp data
Yep.
spine, you can then enhance your data, perhaps improving your match rates, thus getting you greater scale in your campaign. So that's another use case. This is great. This is just organic. We didn't rehearse any of this. How would you? Let's stay with you
Okay.
for a moment. Just again, Snowflake kind of having this expansive view of how data is used in clean room concepts. How is this any different than the old days of server-to-server matching? Like just sending your data to a third-party provider and just doing
Right.
blind matches? Like what's different here?
Right. So there was a key word that you said, sending data. Snowflake, you don't send data. There's no data movement. You share a view of the data, and that data is matched with another data set. So your marketer first-party data is matched to the subscriber universe of the streamer. But it never moves out of your Snowflake account. And then if you want to see what your scale is of your first-party data against that subscriber universe, that streamer is putting in templated queries that doesn't provide you granular level data that says, yes, David Wells in your CRM is actually a subscriber of Disney Hulu. It says, of your 10 million consumers, you match on 75% of them. And then you can activate that, or you can render a list that gets served or surfaced in the ad server of that streamer, and that ad is delivered.
That nuance needs to be simplified.
Yep.
In your pitch.
Yep.
I don't want to put percentage, but I would say it's more than 50% of the people in the industry will not understand any of this.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, go to market, product marketing
Right.
around this is key.
Well,
It's important.
it's
It's so important. The
it's
fact that
100%.
data is not moving is so important, but
100%.
explaining why that is important.
Absolutely.
And
And it's a novel concept. When I landed at Snowflake, or was at least talking to Snowflake, they talked about the concept of data access without movement and data governance. And it took me a while to wrap my head around it. But the idea of the analogy that we use is like a Google Doc. You have a Google Doc and I have a Google Doc.
Mhm.
We want to merge rows and columns, but maintain that Google Doc in our own drive. You can do that actually with Snowflake, and then just obscure, or at least aggregate the results of those merges.
Yeah, that's a core concept. We put that in and you worked with us, you and Habu and many others worked on the standards, and that's a core part of the Tech Lab standards is that the data never leaves the actual endpoints. So you mentioned, David, earlier that we're close. Maybe we're digging in the wrong spot for the Ark of the Covenant, but we're close. Do you see clean rooms replacing any existing solutions? How do they evolve? Where do you see, when are we digging in the right spot in your opinion? And does it replace things?
I think to some degree it will. I think what's starting to happen is the lines between ad tech, MarTech are blurring.
Absolutely.
And it's plug and play and all this. And my wish, my vision on all of this, as we go through this today, is that it's going to address whatever we haven't thought of 5 years from now, when maybe there is more reality. And maybe it will start more in other verticals, and then we will kind of adapt that into this. I think, again, I'll give you another analogy here, but every time I have to go and buy a car, I know I'm looking for something that has wheels, goes forward, goes backward, has a steering wheel, all the kind of functional elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're changing the fuel source, whether it's gas or, batteries of a certain type. The data is what's going to keep changing. I want to make sure that the clean rooms, and whether it's one clean room interoperable with whatever's coming next, is going to have that modular sensibility, that we don't have to keep building things all over again. It's still a car, but I can change the source of whatever it's going to be, and it's still going to be going, because the clients, rare disease, mass, they're all going to have different needs and can only go so far.
Yep.
And I think that's part of what we're trying to build for in the future.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see regulate, as the regulatory environment plays out in the U.S., Europe, rest of the world. There's going to be certain data sets that are going to be, more heavily regulated than others. So adaptability is going to be key.
One thing that, yeah. No, I was just saying, one thing that I'd love to get everyone's opinion, because we're seeing this and we're always like scratching our heads, is the big holdcos, the Publicis of the world, the Densers, the IPGs, have invested in their DMPs, right? So between Epsilon, between Axiom, between Merkle, are they also using the snowflakes? Because they're pushing us towards the Epsilons and the Axioms of the worlds, but are they also, like, kind of, where's that going?
WPPs.
And what's WPP is?
So for us, our product is Choreograph.
Choreograph,
I
right?
would call it a data management platform.
Okay.
A million different reasons it shouldn't be a data management platform. But yeah, we are working with Snowflake.
So you do, it's both.
Sitting on top of it. And like I said, I think it is working for specific verticals.
Got it.
That not health right now, health-related verticals, but there are opportunities there. I was just gonna build on top of what David said as far as reevaluating the stack, and I feel like that's what the job of an agency is anyway, to make sure that whatever technology stack you have is most up to date for the goals that you have in place. So any kind of introduction of something this meaningful requires reevaluation of the whole stack, and something will have to go.
Like what?
Potential data management platform. If you've been using some kind of a CDP, reevaluating whether your CRM systems are correct, your analytics tools, all of that now becomes quite kind of in question, and always that's just upfront on the audience kind of insights creation phase, and then on activation phases, metrics become an issue, and where do you activate to make sure those metrics are? So I think that kind of forces you to reevaluate the whole end-to-end stack.
I want to focus in on this. This is one of the next questions, but I want to focus in on the comment you made. We can dive into this. You said clean rooms, are solving or potentially solving for other verticals, but not healthcare yet. Healthcare and pharma yet. This is a pharma healthcare discussion.
Yeah.
What's it going to take? I'd love both of your perspectives on what is it going to take for it to start to solve for that, and how.
I have my own personal opinions. Healthcare industry usually is behind the rest of the industry when it comes to innovation.
More deliberate. I mean,
Let's call it that.
Valid reasons.
And, yes, for all the valid reasons. But I think examples of success and scalable execution where you can actually see that needle moving. So I think that's what it's going to take for us to say, is it worth to go through all of this to introduce this new way of operating because of this new piece of technology in your end-to-end stack, and how much are you actually gaining from it?
And is that a limit? Is that a limitation? If I'm going to read in between the lines a little bit, is that not so much a limitation of what data clean rooms could potentially solve in the future? Is that the fact that you're maybe dealing with a limited data set to start with which may not justify the ROI of investing in a clean room. 'cause
Absolutely. Limited.
I only have
data
1 million records, and at a 40% match rate, there's really not the scale there. So is this, for healthcare specifically, does it start with, you're starting with a limited data set, Dale?
Yeah,
That's you.
that's definitely a part of it. I think there's other things that somewhat is just a philosophical, where do you sit on the lines of data and the use of that data? And as odd as this strikes me sometimes, this isn't about data, it's about trust. And you can blow this up in a heartbeat. So yes, there are great tools and there are greater precautions and ways to go about it in a safe manner. But all that being said, sometimes you still can't get somebody to go forward because they're just not willing to get there. They say one thing, but they're going to do something else. And
Right.
Again, I surprisingly still find that. But with all that's going on with my health, my Data Act in Washington, we're walking a fine line right now.
Absolutely.
And I think there's just a few eyes out there that are causing some companies to kind of not be the early bird. They're okay being the second mouse.
Yeah, I mean, but once you have a data, like, what I have observed in the industry, I think consumers are subconsciously, in some cases, consciously concerned about privacy, as they should be. But once a company has a data breach, now they're very concerned about their privacy with that partner, and particularly in healthcare. And that's the sensitive of sensitive data that's there. So, I think it has to be deliberate. So, a question for you: are there verticals you're seeing where data clean rooms are scaling better versus not? Like, is CPG, is it QSR?
We're actually seeing it in.
Are you seeing it in healthcare?
We are. So two things. A lot of the use cases that we're seeing, they're coming to us is mostly in insurance. Believe it or not, auto insurance seems to be there because they want to connect the dots between an exposure of an ad on linear or on streaming to an actual quote. And there's a lot of data, a ton of data. But also, like, selfishly here, we have a massive a very strategic relationship with Deep Intent, and we actually don't use a clean room in this case, but they're a trusted partner of ours, and we do share our data. We do share our ACR data for them that they can connect the exposure of a pharmaceutical ad to an outcome. Right? And that is something that they are doing. Now, can it be enhanced? Can they do it through a Snowflake and others? I'm sure. But we trust them, and we trust that partnership that we're able to provide that data for a pharmaceutical use case. So that's something that we're doing, but I don't know if others would feel the same level of comfort.
That's a great point. So a lot of people talk about clean rooms. A lot of people also just talk about encryption, right? If you encrypt two different data sets and have a key that securely joins, say, like a publisher data with a marketer's data, and then that gets in an ad platform where those two data sets are joined securely, and neither party has access to the other, and that can power data that qualifies inventory or packages it with inventory. It's a really great opportunity, whether it's on the activation side or the measurement side, and who's to say what's going to win, a clean room or a third-party encryption technology? So
we had a specific case where an auto insurer came to us and said they were an existing client, and let's say they ended up they were like, if you use a clean room, your spend for not only a clean room but then also a measurement provider at the end. So they're connecting the dots on both. But if you end up sharing this data, your spend level is going to go up by 3.5 or 4x. And we're talking millions and millions of dollars. Why not?
Sure.
And we ended up doing it.
You mentioned, we talked about technologies or other platforms or products clean rooms could replace. For the pharma and healthcare marketers in the room, what should they expect? What should they expect out of their agencies from a skill set perspective? How do you, Oleg, have to evolve your team, your organization, in the age of data clean rooms?
So this is actually one of the really big reasons why I think we need to keep pushing this conversation, because it's forcing us to reevaluate the staff plans and go back to our clients saying, like, you don't need this many planners anymore, or you don't need this many traffickers anymore. Certain elements of it can be automated through task automation, machine learning, all that stuff. But where do you reinvest? And where you reinvest is in that kind of strategic consulting talent who understands how these building blocks stack up, and who can be that kind of manager of your tech stack. So I really see that as a really big element of a modern agency, and into the future, helping the client make sure that the tech that they have is interoperable as possible, and as simple as possible, and as up to date as possible.
And how does that change your hiring profile? Do you see agencies investing in more data scientists, in more technical product managers?
Expertise is everything. You have to be an expert. Absolutely. That's exactly what we've been doing. We have a large technology arm inside our agency, which is fairly rare, where we develop product, like real software product that complements a lot of off-the-shelf solutions that our clients are buying. And on the analytics side, same thing. Mm-hmm. Data scientists, that's who runs those groups and writes those algorithms.
Dave, how about yourself? What should farmers expect when, in terms of staffing and talent when they're working with your organization?
Definitely agree. We're talking data scientists, people that can speak. They know the platforms and know how these things have to be put together in order to get the whole puzzle to kind of play out. I think there's another element. Yes, there's consulting. You have certain clients that are just yet still starting their digital transformation. So you have to walk them through to that point. And in some cases, it's more than the consulting. You need to kind of do the work for them because they don't have the manpower internally. Yeah. I think the other element is you need to have somebody on the client side that is ultimately responsible for that data privacy. So we have a trust and security team that actually reviews contracts that clients get, that before they sign, they want another set of eyes to say, what's the keyword in here that says I'm going to get tripped up on this, right, and I'm going to get hurt when something goes wrong, because, to your point earlier, never use the word never, but you're trying to buy as much insurance as possible and put the best eyes in this. So you need somebody who has that understanding of the regulations, the right terminology, and make sure that you're safeguarded before you do make any investment going forward.
So strong privacy counsel within the agency. It's not just technical. It's also
we have
subject matter experts when it comes to privacy regulations around the globe.
We have an open role right now, if anybody's looking, but data compliance and strategy, a role specifically.
He's hiring.
To connect those dots.
Yeah,
we're actually hiring.
Yeah, what we found when we were creating the data clean room standards for the industry, we were going to publish them in December, and then the working group, we paused because what we found was missing. There was also you have to prep your data. Just because you have, and we've seen advertisers, they've got data over here, sometimes across multiple platforms. There's no way to synthesize or normalize those data sets. So there also needs to be a lot of data preparation. You don't just jam all your data into a data clean room magically. You get matches on the other end. So there's a lot of prep work that, this is where.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's right. This is where
someone needs to be able to.
Well, this is where data science supports comes in. You can work with the clients and advise them. Okay, here, you've got data in 3 different locations here, so you're going to bring that together, normalize it, and then import it into a data clean room. But then, Dave, you hit on something too. Like governance is key here. Data clean rooms just don't magically solve issues of privacy. You need to have strong data governance as a pharma or healthcare brand.
And it goes back to the trust point that I was making earlier. If you need to bring those people in to give management comfort to say, no, clean rooms are a good idea. There is a safeguard. There are measures in place. Probably doesn't solve for everything, but it doesn't mean you have to stand still for the next 10 years. You can't really afford to do that either.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Yeah. Serge, we'll go with you on this one, then I want to jump to you on this. Are clean rooms, they a silver bullet? Is this the answer to addressability across the CTV ecosystem? Is it, the magic wand?
I don't know if it's the magic wand. No offense, but I think it facilitates a lot. I think it enables a lot. But like I said, we're still early phase, right? Like I think, let me be honest. Like I think I have probably 3 to 4 clients that are actually leveraging this outside of measurement and attribution. Measurement and attribute and analytics is happening a lot. That, no doubt about it. On the activation side, which is where we're all interested in as well, it's a handful. right now. It really is a handful. And by the way, I know we talked about match rates. Like in CTV space, the IDs don't change a lot. The IP addresses are actually pretty, they're pretty stable. And so your match rates are going to be north of 80, 90%. But still, it's getting the comfort level. It's the education, which we both have to do. It's all you have to get to the agencies as well. But like, it's getting everybody. Honestly, the biggest thing, the big takeaway for me is like, if you guys can, if the clean rooms can emphasize so much that your data doesn't leave your environment, that by itself, and just blow it up everywhere. I think because like I'm gonna like when we work with a DMP right now, we are sending the data, not we are literally sending the data onto an S3 bucket. They're bringing it in. It is out of our walls. It is completely out of our walls. We have zero control. God only knows what they're doing with it, right? But in theory, they should be doing the right thing. But let's be honest. That's the advantage that you guys have. I don't think that message is out there as much as it should.
Well, that's why they keep me around. So.
Yeah. It's called job security, buddy.
So from a snowflake, I mean, is it a panacea? Is this the one-stop shop? Is this a magic wand? Is it
I'm not a
solid
believer
addressability, consumer
of
privacy?
silver bullets in life, let alone ad tech, martech. I think it's a tremendous technology. I think, selfishly, Snowflake is a tremendous technology in itself. I think our framework for data clean rooms is tremendous. However, it is very early, and there are things that we need to do to improve upon it. And our marketer partners, agency partners, they push us to improve on it. So, like, Snowflake is a SQL-based platform, and we sort of made our way in the industry with a lot of data scientists and technology leadership. We're now merging more towards marketing leadership, and we have to make Snowflake as a platform in ad tech and martech more accessible to those people who are not engineers and intuitive. So one of the ways that we deliver a clean room, whether through a partner like Habu or Samua or a Snowflake data clean room, is through a native application, which means you can download and deploy a native app. And you can access that app and drag and drop to actually match your first-party data in a table in a warehouse to a streamer's subscriber universe, and then activate. It's still very early days. However, we need to make it so that the layperson who's not writing code, who doesn't know SQL like myself, actually can do that. And I think that the onus is on us to just improve that process and that accessibility.
Dave, over yourself, is it a panacea? Is it part of a portfolio?
I think it's part of a portfolio. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all, but I think it's a great next step. I think
We're just going to dig in the right spot.
Yeah, I mean, look, you need the pieces, so great. I love that publishers are willing to share, and the agencies get paid to give client solutions so they can make more money as quickly as possible. So, and we want to make money on those products. So if there's a way to take something like Snowflake and couple that with something else, and these are just questions that we're talking about are measurement, and we kind of look at the same 4 or 5 questions, but you start looking at this data and you realize, wait, there's like 19 other questions in here that I could be trying to solve for to build products off of, and say, wait, you can't compete with that person because they spend 10 times you. So again, you go to that smarter angle. If you can't outsmart them. And here's the way, but you need the data, and I think the clean room gives you that chance to kind of get to that degree.
Yeah. Well,
I'm gonna say what I said in the beginning. This is just a next natural step, I think, evolution of data management.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not a silver bullet. It's not solving for everything. There are already specific use cases for it, and as long as you quickly identify that use case, I can see an opportunity for it. Outside of that, this is not in the overall technology stack. All the pieces that are required, it plays a role. Not, I wouldn't say it's the most fundamental role, but it plays a role.
Yeah, it's an enabler.
yeah, it's a great way of putting it.
Yep.
I know we want to leave a little time for questions. I don't have, there's the clock. It's over there. We got 12 minutes. Fantastic. We'll close out with the final question and I open it up to you folks in the crowd. How would you recommend, Serge, we'll start with you. How would you recommend to the audience, how do they start exploring a data clean room? Is there
I think
first step? Is it
Well, I think it's working with world class. Like, we have our relationship with Snowflake. We have other relationship. We're going to be agnostic. You kind of have to. We work with Habu. I know you guys are investors. It's kind of interesting. And with like, are they frenemies or are they together? God only knows. But anyway, we are completely agnostic. We let the clients and the agencies dictate. We will. I think it's important for folks to share their data in a controlled environment. The fact that it doesn't leave your environment is really, really helpful. But I think if you get over that step, over that hump, and by the way, getting over that, I work for a Korean company. It takes forever to convince anything to get them to agree. Talk about conservative, right? So, but we got them there because it's in a safe environment. And what's the benefit? The benefit is more activation dollars. At the end of the day, it's more activation dollars. Not there yet. We're getting there, but that's the ultimate benefit. But you have to convince each of your organizations saying, here's what we're driving towards if we share our data in a controlled environment that we can control.
Oleg, how would you recommend the audience dip their toe in the clean room?
I ask of every company that claims to be a clean room or some kind of enabler of a clean room to educate me in a way that I can take this information and pitch it and be their internal mouthpiece for this stuff. So educate, you have to connect the dots. So the more conversations you have with every single one of these, so you can differentiate between what Habu does, because they're not saying they're a clean room, what Snowflake does, what InfoSum does.
What Optimal does.
Right.
Yeah, the list goes on.
Different shades of gray there, and they're all saying that they're addressing different things.
In layman's terms.
Educate me,
layman's terms.
in layman's terms. I think I can understand it enough, and I can even help you make it more sellable from a standpoint of explanation. So it's right now we're squarely in that education phase, because every time I meet with every one of these companies, and I do try to meet up because I want to learn myself, I hear a slightly different story from all of them, because I think they're all looking, still kind of trying to find what is their story for the buy side.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're telling the sell side, but that's what I'm hearing.
Anyway, how would you recommend the audience starts down this path of clean rooms?
Number one, I would say go at your own pace. There's no need to rush. I would say understand the data you have, the governance around the data, make sure you have the right to do what you think you can do.
Data governance. Is
And then see what pieces are missing and see if there's a way with a partner to bring it together. And I think it's the perfect situation to use the phrase test and learn.
Mhm.
You're not going to get it all right the first time. You don't even know what you're probably looking for the first time. And you'll find things along the way just inadvertently. So go with your own pace.
We'll close with you. I mean,
Yeah, I love these last two answers. I mean, at Snowflake, we like to educate partners on our technology, whether it's clean rooms or other types of technology. And we understand that it's a very novel concept and it's new, and that it takes some time to understand it. And we're not here for the short term. So we educate as much as possible. We take privacy very seriously. We take our market, our agency partnerships very seriously. We want them to have a high degree of comfort in Snowflake and in data clean rooms to support any type of use case, whether activation or measurement or analytics. And then we just start conversations around, and we start that education process, and we sort of listen to them about the problems that they're trying to solve. Sometimes clean rooms are, one of those problems that it helps to solve one of those problems. And then we say like, okay, well, what if we test this through a data clean room? And then we test it, and it pays dividends usually, and we iterate on it. And I think that's just the way that Snowflake started as a platform atop the 3 public clouds, and that's how we've grown. And our hope is that data clean rooms on Snowflake will grow in that same way. Mm-hmm. So we're happy to go at people's pace, and we're happy to educate along the way.
What we've seen at the IIB Tech Lab is that, and we're talking with agencies and brands, one in healthcare, actually, they've asked us our thoughts, is it really starts with a data strategy, and I break that into 2 things, data operations and data governance. Data governance is, what are your retention policies? are they in compliance with local regulations? And then data operations, it's that example that I used earlier where, either in working with your agency partner or even in-house, do you have a small team of data scientists that can synthesize and normalize those data sets before you leverage it in any capacity, not just a clean room, but in other ways? So we call it data strategy, and we've seen a few brands that are embarking on that now. So that's kind of the first step, and again, that's either in-house or doing it with your agency and vendor partners is where we see it. Is where we see really the first step for brands to start. So we've got 5 minutes, about almost 6 minutes. We'll open it up. We can keep bullshitting up here all day. We'll open it up to the audience for questions. There are no questions. We were thorough, very thorough. Okay. Well, it looks like we'll end 6 minutes early. Give everyone the gift of time. Thank you to our panel. Appreciate you guys coming on stage with us. I've been told to inform the crowd that there is the networking break upstairs right after this. So head on up, and there will be, I believe, coffee, etc. Sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, dude.
Thank you.